Retired Director of Support Services. You worked with Greece Central for 30 years. Patricia Patsy Jones, she's a retired teacher who passed. Ellen Lathers, the mother of Emily Lathers, an Assistant Director of Special Ed. And Mary Rose Disprospero, sister of Tina DePonzio, who's a Curriculum and Instruction Secretary. So if you can keep the Henry, Jones, Lathers, and Disprospero families and DePonzio families in your thoughts and prayers, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Moving on, can I have somebody move the agenda to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Sawicki, seconded by Ms. Flores. Any additions, corrections, deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 1.06, our student leader comments from the Phoenix Academy and the MCC transition students. Who would like to go first? Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I appreciate for being given the chance to speak today.
Could you guys just do me a favor and step up a little bit closer to the microphone? Great, thank you.
I am Samuel McBride, and I am a senior who attends Phoenix Academy. Willie?
My name is Willie Jackson, and I'm part of Phoenix, and I'm in 8th grade. Features of Phoenix are, and we are a community school. Social community events are like friendship, Friendsgiving, Black Excellence Tour through Phoenix, and we have incentives like attendance, personal electronic expectations, and we also have a program from Hillside Work Scholarship Program, helping students realize their potential in school, community, and life. And I am also a part of the Hillside program, and I am learning how to make positive choices and setting goals, and they also help us get jobs. We have a garden called Phoenix Garden, and it was created by a wonderful teacher and a wonderful student who designed this Phoenix Garden to grow fruits and vegetables that are good for the earth.
Sorry, I'm like extremely nervous right now. Phoenix Academy art is 3 of my favorite words: spontaneous, unique, and fun. These are just a couple pictures of artwork from our very talented students. The art, including sculptures, ceramics, painting, and pottery, are what most of the students get excited for. Not only that, but these arts and wonderful masterpieces bring students and staff together, seeing how it is to be a part of a diverse environment between stern learning and enjoyment. The fun is in the learning. The art teacher at our school, Ms. Schilling, should be very proud. After all, it is her teaching that help kids realize that they can be really superstars. Whew. Why I find success at Phoenix is because not only is it not, I would say, as big as other Greece schools, it's really hard to pay attention. It's hard to stay focused. It's hard not to fool around with friends because we're kids. Phoenix, it's small, but it's us. The administrators, there to help no matter the frustration or problem at home, anytime we need to talk, anytime we feel overwhelmed with work. And the teachers do the most in their ability to guide me in every student that goes to our school to success. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
I gotta wait for the magic to happen here. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Ruggieri, and I'm one of the Assistant Directors of Pupil Personnel Services for the district. In addition, I have the esteemed pleasure of being the administrator that oversees our GCSD transition program. Before I move into our presentation, I want to take a moment to thank Superintendent Groutman, her cabinet, and the Board of Education for your ongoing support of not only our transition program, but special education as a whole in our district. In Greece, we are fortunate enough to have an internal transition program that consists of 2 classrooms, one of which is housed at Elcott Road, yay Phoenix, and the other is on the MCC campus downtown. Our GCSD transition program is a special education program designed for students ages 18 to 21 years old. Students in the program have been designated as New York State alternate assessment by the Committee on Special Education and will earn their skills and achievement commencement credential upon exiting. As such, the modified curriculum and instruction is focused on the acquisition of daily living and work readiness and vocational skills, functional academics, and community orientation in order to help students further develop their skills in these areas. The program provides students with community-based learning experiences and resources that are designed to develop and foster functional life and work skills necessary for the adult world, including independence, employment, daily living, and interpersonal and self-determination. Our program goal is to ensure that upon exiting, our students are prepared to be productive, contributing members of our community. Both staff and students in our program work diligently to create a short video that illustrates the work that they engage in daily. And before starting the video, I just want to take a moment to introduce the amazing staff and young adults that are here with us from our transition program. So we have Jordan Williams.
Welcome, Jordan.
Mike Lee. We have Stacy Hurley, who is our Elcott Road transition teacher. Laura Acasio and Linda Mueller, who are 2 of our teaching assistants at MCC campus. And Megan Wright, our transition teacher on the MCC campus. All right, here goes nothing. Ooh, hold on. There we go.
By being at the fitness center, I learned how to follow a routine.
Love being creative,
and making new things in this transition program.
Learning to be more outgoing has made me excited for my future.
I have learned to be very independent, and I'm able to go to places on campus by myself.
I'm taking classes on my own. I like to meet new people, and I'm learning how to be independent.
So in the MCC Brighton bookstore, I'm learning how to be organized.
I learned it's okay to open up more.
They say that I have special needs, and while that's partly true, the needs that mean the most to me are the same ones you have too. I need to be accepted, I need friends that make me smile, I need a chance to learn and grow, feeling valued all the while. Sure, I need some extra help in some things I cannot do, but hope you see beyond all that. Inside, I'm just like you.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. Moving on to our union comments, President Eberts.
Well, it's not very great to go after such two awesome crews, so compliments to you all. That was fantastic. Just as a quick reminder, huge thank you to the board. We have 9 volunteer people up here doing this work. They don't get paid a dime. They put in tons of time to support our school district, so thank you. Thank you to our leaders as well. Like I said, it's hard to follow that group, but that's really why we're doing this. That's why we do this work, is to support our students in the schools. So I have a couple comments tonight, won't be long. Excuse me. The first thing is a very light thing, something to help our Greece community as a whole. We every year do a food drive to support the Greece Ecumenical Food Shelf. We've done this for many years, well over a decade. We've collected well over 100,000 pounds of food, many thousands of dollars in donations. All the money goes straight to the food shelf. So if you're interested, please check out our website, greeceteachers@gmail.com. If you want to, send in monetary donations, we have a PayPal account. If you want to send in a check, you could make it out to Greece Teachers Community Programs, send it to the office. All that information will be online for our website. So please, if you're interested, we'd love for your support. Now on to my main topic. I want to take a couple minutes to share my perspective about rising behavior concerns in schools. Unfortunately, the pandemic has left us in a situation where the mental health needs of our students and greater community is at an all-time high. We are experiencing rates of mental health needs with families, students, and staff in our community like never before. I serve on the board of directors for NYSET, which is the New York State United Teachers, and I work with people from throughout the state. And their needs are the same. They share the same stories. This concern is not unique to Greece. I'd like to take the opportunity to make 2 points on this topic. We have amazing people throughout our school district working their hardest to help with behavior. Nobody is thrown in the towel. People are stretched very thin, working above and beyond in every facet of the district. I see it daily in schools. It does not matter your title or your role. We have exceptional people everywhere. That brings me to my second point. Doing this united is the only way that will allow us to move forward in a positive direction. We at the GTA have always maintained that to truly make positive improvement for our students, members, and community, we need to work together to accomplish these goals. I just received this exact feedback at a few different schools this past week. Thankfully, our district leadership is on board and wants to work further to help ensure a successful educational environment. The idea that we are uniting around such an important issue to this high of a degree is unique to Greece. Collaboration and creative solutions will be huge for us moving forward to support a healthy organization. Pointing fingers will help no one. We are committed to this for our students, our staff, and our greater community. Nothing is perfect, and we all understand there's more work to do. But thankfully, we have the right people in every corner of our schools wanting to work together. It shows by all the people here supporting parents, staff, community. So thank you very much for the time. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Brian. I guess I'm going with Kelly Flagler next. No, you're good, Kelly. I'm just picking on you.
Good evening, everyone. Let me set this up. Oh, Joe did it for me. Thank you, Joe. Good evening, President McCabe, board members, Superintendent Groutman, and Cabinet. My name is Kelly Flagler, principal of Athena High School, and I am thrilled to highlight for you a number of celebrations by GASA leaders throughout the district. Let's begin with Patty Hill. All right, led by Principal Michelle Barton, who just wrapped up the second of 3 before and after school clubs. Patty Hill now has over 10 new opportunities, including book club, Code Ninjas, Minecraft, Tumbling Ninjas, lots of ninjas going on there, Cooking Club, Chess Club, Fairy Tale STEM Club, and my personal favorite, Cupcake Club. Patty Hill would like to give a shout out to the staff and parents who have come together to support the future Little Ninjas. At Brookside, led by Principal Anitra Huxmeyer, kindergarten and 4th graders partner up as reading buddies, and 2nd graders are celebrating achieving their wildly important goals. Earning a camp-out party, as you can see kids bundled up in sleeping bags under canopied tents in the classrooms. Absolutely adorable. Now, taking a look at Craig Hill, led by my dear friend, Principal Brandon Jones. Last month, Craig Hill partnered with Autumn Lane to host a family skate night. Kids and families loved it and are already asking for more. This month, Craig Hill will be hosting their first parent exchange to discuss the code of conduct. Additionally, Craig Hill continues their professional learning around the power of formative assessment, the cultural competence, and student engagement. Lastly, Craig Hill will continue celebrating students in 3 unique ways. First, positive behavioral referrals. Second, Cougar Cash. And third, the coveted Golden Tray Award for classes demonstrating respect and responsibility in the lunchroom. And I asked Principal Jones to take a picture and send it to us so we could see the holy grail of their coveted golden tray right up there for you tonight. Also, over at English Village, Principal Jason Lewis recently led the Very Good Kids Award ceremony and welcomed families in for the first annual health and safety fair that we heard a community member speak to. Kudos to English Village. Now, over at Pine Brook, led by Principal Andrea Gilia, they're celebrating the generous $900 grant from the Greece Education Foundation. These funds will be used to provide a wide selection of bilingual literacy books to support Pine Brook's diversity and inclusivity efforts. And congratulations to Pine Brook students for meeting their wildly important goal and increasing fresh air. Students celebrated with a dance party. I absolutely love it. And the next school-wide goal is an increasing reading, so stay tuned for more dance parties. A couple of quick highlights from Greece Olympia, led by Principal Sherry Weber. First, Spartans celebrated World Hijab Day in an effort to promote a welcoming and affirming environment. And members of the boys' basketball team invited faculty to join in recognition of teacher appreciation. Next up, we have the Odyssey Academy Leopards, led by Principal Corey Hepburn, partnering with elementary athletes from Long Ridge to host an open gym. And Mr. Hepburn said that his favorite part was seeing both schools come together. Well done, Odyssey. And last, but certainly not least, I'm a little impartial here, a source of personal pride and joy, Athena High School. So I'm really proud to share with you that our students are performing very, very well academically. The vast majority, and we just did data analysis, of students are passing all of their classes, and nearly half have earned honor roll designations at some point during this school year. Over the past 3 years, we've focused really intently on refining our intervention processes, so I can now say with confidence that when an Athena Trojan is in need, whether it be academic, social and emotional, or behavioral, we have structures in place to support them so that their needs can be met and they can continue to thrive both inside and outside of the classroom. Of course, there's always work to be done, but I've never felt so energized and proud of the work that we're doing at Athena. In addition to the academics, we also are killing it in the extracurricular world. So if you have not yet had the opportunity to see Anastasia, you absolutely must. So please make it a priority to see if you can come this weekend. There are shows Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you can purchase tickets for $12 at the door. Thank you so much to many of you who have already attended. We appreciate your love and support there. Lastly, I have a couple of shout outs here. So we have partnered with our Director of Equity, Cedric Simmons, to host 2 major upcoming events. And I must share with you that this was started as a vision from some of our student leaders whom you've had the opportunity to meet. So Jada Williams, Maya Williams, and Sade Mewborn. They had a vision, and if I'm being completely honest, they've had lots and lots of visions. So Cedric and I have been busy this year supporting them and seeing many of their visions come to fruition. 2 of the really big ones are the they co-founded the Black Student Union, as you know, but they are hosting the first ever Blackout Gala, which is this next Friday, February 17th. And all 4 high schools are welcome to invite students to attend. It's a formal sponsored event, including a keynote speaker and former NBA player and Athena alum, John Wallace. And on behalf of the Black Student Union, Cedric and I would like to extend an invitation to all members of the Board of Education. If you're looking for a night out or something to do, we would love to have you join us next Friday for the Blackout Gala. In addition to that, we also have the HBCU trip, which was a vision that the girls had really started about a year ago, and so they've been working diligently. We currently have received 179 applications, so we're really, really excited about that. We're in the process for reviewing those, and more info to come as the trip gets a little bit closer. In closing, and on behalf of GASA, I wholeheartedly want to thank the board for your support. You may not always get to see the impact that your roles have on day-to-day business, but I can assure you that your policies, your requisition approvals, your allocations for events are having a profoundly positive impact on staff and students. In fact, all of these highlights I shared with you tonight would not be possible without each of you doing your jobs so well so that we can do our jobs well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Is there anybody from AgSept? Gus? Teamsters. All right, moving on. 2.01 staffing. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Vice President Moore, second by Mr. Maloney. Any comments, questions, or concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on, item 2.02, GTA MOA Golf Assistant. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Flores, second by Mr. Maloney. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 2.03, the Teamsters MOA. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Swicky, seconded by Dr. Traywick. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 2.04, the GTA MOA extension. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Swicky, seconded by Mr. Maloney. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 4.01, the 2023-24 State Aid Proposal Presentation. Superintendent Groutman.
Yes, I'm going to have Romeo Kalili, Mr. Kalili, come on up. We have two pieces to this, so it's almost 4.01 and 02 together, but it's the Executive State Aid Proposal and the rollover budget that Romeo is going to bring us through right now, so I'll turn it right over to him.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As Superintendent Groutman had mentioned, this is one presentation, but there's a pause in here, so if we need any questions, we can answer them then. For tonight, the Executive State Aid budget, Executive State Aid review and the rollover budget, we've got good news and we've got good news. So it's a pleasure to present for this evening. Governor Hochul presented her budget on February 1st. Many of the things that we talked about at the last board meeting did in fact show up in the state aid runs. You can see them here. New York State is balanced at $227 billion. It's a growth in their budget of about 2.4% over last year. They've established a rainy day fund. It currently has about $24 billion in it by the end of this current year for them. She has allocated and stayed true to the state foundation aid formula implementation. So there's a historic $34.5 billion school aid allocation. It's 10% over last year. We are getting our full foundation aid. The governor had promised that over a 3-year period. This is the last of the 3 years coming up in 23-24. State aid is going up 12.8% or $2.7 billion over last year. Also within the governor's budget, there's a $250 million for high-impact tutoring, specifically targeted towards reading and math for students in grades 3 through 8. $125 million increase to expand full-day pre-kindergarten. Funds in the expense-based aids, which we don't talk a lot about, but have not changed. The formulas have stayed the same. That will drive another $225 million out to school districts. She's also recommending a $1 billion investment in mental health across the state, with $30 million, which will be allocated specifically to school districts. Minimum wage in her proposal is recommended to be indexed to inflation. So as inflation goes up, so will the minimum wage accordingly. And it does include the extension of the income waiver for teachers, retired teachers and school workers. So that was expiring this coming up June. She is recommending that we extend it for one additional year. So what does all that mean for Greece? This is a comparison we do each year. The first column is the adopted budget from last year for 22-23, and the governor's proposal is in the gray column, 23-24, and then there's a variance and a percentage change. Overall, you'll see circled in red, we are looking at state aid at this point in time of about $151.2 million for next year. Walking through some of these items just to make some notes. Foundation aid formula is at $106.9 million. What you'll see at the top here is they have broken out the high-impact tutoring set-aside. So the foundation aid formula will drive, excuse me, $106.9 million, but we must spend $1.9 million on high-impact tutoring, specifically within grades 3 through 8 for reading and math during the next school year. Overall foundation aid is up $19 million. We had talked about the last meeting that in the December runs, we thought it, it was showing 19 million. We were expecting somewhere around 15.5, 16, but it looks like we're at this point received a higher amount. Building aid and transportation aid, those numbers are tentative right now, 11.6 million and almost 17 million. The building aid number is down. It looks a little unusual to me, but we are meeting with our financial consultants this Friday to review both building aid and transportation. You may see an adjustment that we make internally to those numbers, possibly at the next update for the board. Pre-K grant, $2.9 million, no change in that for universal pre-K. Public and private excess cost aids, we're down also in public excess cost. Our belief is that is due to timing and reports that are in the process of being submitted to the state. They should show their way and make it to the legislative run. So I'm not too concerned about the $737,000 drop. I think that will go back to our previous levels of 1.5 or $1.6 million. Textbooks, library, and software, about the same. Charter school transition aid, about the same. And our BOCES aid is up $2.7 million. And that is expected because we have been running more expenditures through BOCES strategically in order to get aided on those same expenses. Overall, state aid is up $21.7 million, or about almost 17%. The 151, 192 is the number we will use at this time in our projection for the rollover. I did want to say one other thing. I lied when I said the good news and good news. I won't call it bad news, I'll call it a caution. In the budget book, and I want to put this out there now, in the budget book, as I went through the budget book for the governor's runs, it talks about 23-24 and says we're getting 17% increase. However, it also cautions that at this point in time in the out years, New York State could be short in FY25 about $9 billion, FY26 about $7.5 billion, and FY27 about another $5.5. Total of $22 billion over the next 3-year period after the 23-24 budget, primarily as a result of decreased tax receipts within New York State. So we're not certain what happens after we get this $151.2 million. We're not sure if foundation aid will go to 2%, if it will go to 0, if there will be something else. It's not been stated. The legislature's working on it, but we're going to take a cautious view of that and make sure that we're ready should the number be 0 or something minimal, and at 2% or something higher, that we were prepared to react to it. But again, just a caution out there on what happens in the future 3 years.
Questions? Vice President Moore?
Romeo, I'm glad to see they're expanding full-day pre-K. Is there ever talk about transportation for pre-K?
There is.
Okay.
It is a point that is being advocated by, I believe, both the Board of Regents and ASBO, the Assistant School Business Managers. That's out there, and trying to make it aidable as well. We'll see where that goes come March.
Mr. Swicky?
Romeo, just one question. So this is the exec, legislative will come in the next couple
Mid-March.
of weeks, right?
March.
Is there any, can you read the tea leaves at all? And I mean, sometimes we get an uptick, sometimes they hold it flat. Usually doesn't go down. What are you hearing?
There's a lot of positive thought from what I've been reading and hearing from others that the legislature generally does not tinker a lot with the governor's recommendation, in most cases increases it. There are a couple items out there that are not in, or one particular that is not in the governor's budget, i.e. Universal free meals is not in the governor's budget, but this past weekend we heard from legislatures that said seems to have a lot of interest around providing universal free meals permanently within New York State. So something like that could be added to it. There's also requests and some work being done by legislators on the formula. So if the formula changes or they update the formula to kind of reflect the census of 2020 versus 2000 or some of the other variables in there, we could see a little bit more funding, but it sounds positive. I'm not expecting anything to really be decreased from what's here today.
Great, thank you.
All right, moving on.
Thank you. So now on the rollover budget, and what we generally try to do is what would it cost us next year to do what we've done this year, as well as what items do we need to consider going forward next year that we're not doing this year. So first, we're going to start on the revenue side. This is our initial revenue detail. You'll see here revenues in total are up about almost $24.5 million. The sales tax we've left at our current level, about $9.7 million. Pilot payments are up about $176,000. That's based on a schedule we receive. Other revenues we have left flat. Interest, we're earning more, so we've bumped up that budget as well. That's at $300,000. The state aid, the $151.2 million, that's the number you just saw in the previous slide. Medicaid will stay flat. Tax levy and STAR, we've done preliminary calculations. Again, we will meet with our financial consultants this Friday to really firm up the tax cap. But preliminarily, we believe it's going to be about $122.6 million, which is just over 2% increase in the levy. It may change. Also, the debt service numbers that you see there of $1,079,000 capitalized interest, those still need to be reviewed on Friday as well. Those could change. And the workers' comp and unemployment have stayed the same as we've done in previous years, about $1 million. That brings our total budget from $265.8 to about $290.3 million right now, preliminarily for 23-24. Taking a different type of look at it, how much is state aid, how much is tax levy. The one point to make here, which is interesting that I noticed, is in the past, if you look at the 22-23 budget, state aid last year made up about 48% of our revenues. This year, it makes up 52%. The levy last year was 45% of our revenues. The levy now is 42%. So we're leaning and starting to cross that line to becoming more reliant on state aid, so, which is good in some ways, but again, the state relies a lot on the market in order to get a lot of their revenues, which will come back to us. We've always been 50-50. We seem to be crossing that line now. So that's on the revenue side. Looking at the expenditures, a little bit of a detailed review here. When we roll over what we need, what we've done this year to what we need to do next year for primarily the same items, and there are some exceptions to it, we go up $22.5 million. You can see the variances, salaries and wages go up 5%. You can see the rest of them here. The next couple slides, we're going to explain some of the major variances. I didn't want to spend a lot of time here. I'll just walk you through some of the other items. Again, going through salary and wages, up 5.1%, $6.6 million. It reflects all the items in the new contracts, extra work, substitute estimates, all the individual agreements we have. And what we've done is we've brought over 22 positions from ARP federal funds to the general fund for the 23-24 school year in preparation of those funds being eliminated after next year. Those 22 FTEs are included here, and other support positions that have been added during the year to address student needs are in that number of $137.4 million. You look at equipment, supplies, contract services, and utilities, it's up 26%. Understandably, most of that is inflation-related to the current economic condition. Utilities, gas, utilities, transportation fuel, transportation repairs, all those increases are directly related to inflation. Transportation service contracts, you'll see, is up almost $2 million. Why is that? When we prepared the 22-23 budget, we didn't realize we would have the driver problem to the extent or that it would continue as it did. We passed the budget and prepared the budget and passed it in May. But we unfortunately had to give our external private contractor more routes. Those routes, the cost of those extra routes were not included in the budget. We did take care of it this year and able to take care of it, but we now have to adjust the budget to reflect the true cost of that contract, and that's why transportation contract services is up $2 million. We've also increased supply allocations to the schools by about $600,000. And you'll see the next three items, supplies and materials, for B&G, buildings and grounds, transportation, again, inflation related. Equipment, we've increased by $404,000. The reason for that is our equipment budget is generally around $550,000 or $600,000 on $265 million budget. It's not sufficient to address all the replaced equipment that we need to do on an annual basis. We have decided and recommend that we bring that $550,000 or $600,000 up to $1 million a year. That's what the 404 is for. Pre-referendum costs are in here for about $300,000. We're going to be completing Reimagine Greece over the next, actually this summer and next summer. We'll need to start working on another capital project at some point. If we decide to start working on that in 23-24, there will be costs incurred. So we've budgeted for those. It'll be a one-time item in 23-24. Should we do a capital project, and if that project gets approved by residents, those costs will become aidable to us in the future capital project. But we budgeted for them here. We'll take them out next year. And then there's just miscellaneous other. Look at tuitions are up $1 million. Again, that's directly related to number of students, volume, and cost. Costs have gone up for both public, private, and charter school placements, plus the volume of kids has increased as well. BOCES services is up $3.3 million, about 16%. $1 million of that is solely related to an intentional increase on our part. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we have implemented one-to-one Chromebooks. We've updated our technology infrastructure. We've only carried with BOCES about $1 million a year for technology replacement. We are now at the point where technology replacement needs to be $2 million a year in order to keep up with the changes. So we've increased it $1 million. For that, you'll see the next two lines, community schools, with a lot of advocacy from folks on the board and on cabinet. We have convinced BOCES to create a community schools COSER. So we have taken all our most of our community schools cost still in the general fund, but applied them now towards BOCES. And the reason that becomes very advantageous to us is what we spend with BOCES in 1 year, we get back BOCES aid the following year. So if we spend $1.4 million, $1.5 million here, the following year, we're likely to see $1.2 million, $1.2 million in BOCES aid the following year. So it's a very good strategic move. And then unit increases within BOCES, all their cost centers have gone up 2.5% to 5%. The $600,000 reflects their costs. Benefits are up almost $600,000. Again, all related directly to contracts. You can see those there for incentives, retiree incentives, longevity, healthcare stipends. And that takes us back to a different summary for our expenditures. Again, just to recap, we go on the rollover from 265.8 to 288.3, an increase of $22.5 million. However, there are some outstanding items that still need to be reviewed at the cabinet level. We've got staffing requests that have benefits tied to them, totaling about $1.1 million. Each of those needs to go through a cabinet review process. And then we've got other requests for other increased funding for about $839,000. Those two will need to go through cabinet for review and for approval. Assuming all those were approved, we would be at $290.82 million, which brings us to our lovely last slide, that we have right now a balanced budget, and I don't foresee that changing unless the legislative budget varies significantly from the governor's proposed budget.
Questions? Dr. Trewick.
Hi, Romeo. Great job to you and your team.
Microphone.
Oh. Hi, Romeo. Great job to you and your team. I feel like I ask the same question every time, but I'm going to ask it again. And that is, going back to the salaries and wages, you know, I'm really concerned about the extra positions that we've created. And while I'm happy that in the 23-24 budget, it looks like we'll be able to maintain them, I'm just wondering if, you know, what it's going to look like moving forward, especially in light of the information you just shared with us that New York State is going to be facing some huge deficits and, you know, we may see zero foundation aid moving forward. So is there an idea of a contingency plan for us?
Not specifically, but we have talked about this a number of times to date at Cabinet and in some other discussions as well. The 22 positions, the staff that we have now have been brought over, and the 22 positions that have come over from ARP, we believe we can maintain because of the increase in our foundation aid. What needs to be kind of reviewed in more detail are the remaining position titles that sit in the federal funds, which there's approximately 50, 55 positions sitting there. How can we move those that are needed in those funds into the general fund, and what in the general fund can be repurposed to pay for those positions? So we are right now developing a process on how we're going to do that. It will be a challenge to keep everything that we currently have, so there will need to be some adjustments made within this budget. If best case in my mind, if state aid is up, you know, foundation aid is up 2% and the levy's up 2%, and we've got contracts that are 3.5% salary increases, obviously you can already see that there would be a challenge for us. And if the governor's budget is lower, we've got reserves, we've got some ways to weather that storm. But I think the most important thing that we've been talking about at Cabinet is making sure that the right positions come into the general fund and the right positions that are currently there, or the right expenses in the general fund that may be no longer needed because they've been there and kind of done the same way, are repurposed to do it. So can it be done? Yes. Will it be a challenge? Yes. But we'll cross that bridge when we see it.
Thank you.
Mr. Maloney?
Just a quick question. If there's such a shortage maybe in the upcoming years, can BOCES kind of write a COSER so we could keep those positions and get aided on those?
It's not that easy.
Okay.
And the needs of every district are so different. Some districts have positions in those ARP funds, others do not. BOCES is not a kind of a wash-through just type entity.
Why?
It has its, there has to be a purpose behind it. It has to be shared by other districts. Every year, we approach them for new COSERs. As an example, the community schools COSER, we started bugging them about 2 years ago with that this is something that's coming up. We're incurring expenses. Other districts are incurring expenses. It should be something that you can devise and develop a COSER for, and it's come to fruition. There may be other opportunities like that, but across the board, no. I don't think we'll see that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Dr. Trewick?
I just have one other question, just quickly. So with the rise in costs for recruitment and retention efforts, we know, that it's costing us more to go out and get good qualified people and to keep those people. Where are those costs? Do they kind of get absorbed in kind of like the salary? And I just wanted to know like where we put those
Retention and
numbers.
recruitment, we've increased the HR budget for some of that,
Oh, it's-
those. We're
okay.
also going to continue to use ARP funds for that for 23, 24, but that will probably need to be another adjustment depending on where we are for 24, 25. We have made some adjustments to this budget for it, but ARP is still out there, and recruitment and retention costs are an allowable expense, so we might as well use those funds right now, but we know we have to bring over some additional funds for that for next year.
Thank you.
I just have one. Oop, sorry, go ahead.
I'll let you end. Just a couple of things that I would point out. I think this is a great example of the struggle with school budgeting. So this idea that we can be where we are now, and then you can also read this idea of the shortfall of the state. And that's one of the things that we've continued to advocate for, is a formula and a way of doing school budgeting that makes sense so that we can actually plan short and long-term in ways that make sense, and so that we're not disrupting education in the meantime. This was, I think, the second year that we've ever had a balance. Typically, we sit here and there's between a $3 and a $9 million gap that we have to close, which is terrible, and it really gets at the base service that we're able to provide students. So we're being really thoughtful with those positions, how to build things back into the general fund. We're also really working to make sure that that's being communicated to folks, that many of those positions are short-term positions. They were created in ways to provide a short-term bump to support some of the learning loss from COVID. We know that we were also starting at a deficit, though. So we're really working to try to right-size that by using the additional foundation aid and also using other grants really strategically. So we've got a team that's being really thoughtful about that. I would also say the other thing that sort of gives me a little hope in a weird way is the fact that with the state, the other piece that I think is just an uncertainty is what's going to happen with betting and marijuana sales, which don't typically connect, like, it's not really our lane in education, but could potentially have impact in terms of dollars that we see. And I think everybody's being shy about that because they don't really know what's going to come out of that long term. So just a couple of points.
And just one question, Romeo, with the $24.5 million the governor is taking back from the county in regards to Medicaid, will that impact us in any capacity?
Not aware of that one specifically, but we do get Medicaid funding, so.
I know the county does some of our program.
And so I would guess that there will be an impact to us. I just couldn't tell you what that would be, yeah.
Okay.
Because it does play in, our Medicaid does play in with the county and with the state. So I'm sure if they're taking back funds, we may see some type of an adjustment, but I'm not sure what that would be right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Romeo.
Thank you.
Moving on to change orders, can I have somebody move the change orders to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Maloney, seconded by Mr. Swick. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the change orders? Seeing that, I would just like to comment that the change orders amount to $54,600. And with that, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to Lakeshore Seeker and the CRRSA capital funds approval. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Flores, seconded by Vice President Moore. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to anticipated bids. It's written information only. Does anybody have any questions? All right, seeing none, moving on to summary of property tax refunds. That's written information only. Does anybody have any questions on that? Seeing none, moving on to the consent agenda. Can I somebody move the consent agenda to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Swicky, seconded by Mrs. Flores. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? I would just like to thank GLM Power for the donation in memory of Ray Bauman. I'd like to thank the Athena Extra Classroom Fund for their donation for the DJ for the Winter Dance. Buckman Heights received box top donation from Tops Friendly Markets. Connie Snyder made a donation to community schools. Tops Friendly Markets also made a donation to Lakeshore, and the Extra Classroom Fund paid for the DJ at Greece Olympia and for the modified cheerleading choreography for Greece Olympia. So that's much appreciated. With that, all those in favor of the consent agenda? That passes 8-0. Moving on to item 10.01, the nomination of R. Charles Phillips is our BOCES representative starting July 1st, 2023, ending June 30th, 2026. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Vice President Lohr, seconded by Mr. Swick. Any comments, questions, or concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 10.02, we have two policies. Unless somebody objects, I'm going to move them both together, or look for somebody to move them together. Mr. Swicky, second by Mr. Maloney. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the policies that are before us this evening? Just a statement, Policy Committee met last week. We reviewed these and support their adoption by the board unanimously. So with that, is there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 11.01, I'm going to open a public hearing for the Discovery Charter School. I have no one signed up. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on behalf of the Discovery Charter School? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Moving on to the approval of the revisions to the Discovery Charter School. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Dr. Tralick, seconded by Ms. Flores. I'm going to do a roll call vote on this, starting with Ms. Farah.
No.
Ms. Flores. Yes. Mr. Maloney. No. Dr. Tralick.
Yes.
Mr. Bonagorio.
No.
Mr. Swicky.
No.
Vice President Lohr.
No.
And I'm a no vote. All right. Moving on to the public hearing for the Renaissance Academy Charter School. No one signed up. Do I have anyone who wishes to speak on behalf of the residents, the Rochester Academy Charter School? All right, I'm going to close that public hearing. Moving on to the resolution for that, we're going to do another roll call vote. I'm going to start with Mrs. Flores here on a roll call vote. Mr. Maloney?
No.
Dr. Tralick?
Yes.
Mr. Bonagorio? No. Mr. Swicky?
No.
Ms. Farah?
No.
Vice President Millar?
No.
And I'm a no vote. All right, both of those resolutions fail. Moving on to 12.01, board member comments. Does anybody have any board member comments they would wish to make this evening? Dr. Tralick?
Good evening. I'll start. I had the opportunity to attend the parent exchange over at Olympia. Thank you so much for putting that together. I think it was well thought out, well planned. I do support the idea of having voice at the individual schools because all schools are not the same. Just a couple of comments based on what I observed during that meeting. many parents stressed that they were concerned about their kids' education because of the number of fights that are happening at school. I have 2 children that are in the schools, and they come home and they tell me about fights. And so I understood what the parents were saying and also shared my particular concerns. I know by being a board member that we are doing a lot in terms of trying to improve the safety and security of our students. And I can go on and on about why there's such an increase of fighting happening based on, just my own thought and the data that we've received. But what I want to spend my time on this evening, to make it meaningful, is to just talk about some of the suggestions that were made. Number one, I think we need to look at the language that we use when we talk about how we are conducting things at the school, particularly Olympia. The idea of a hold in place scares the heck out of some parents. That's what came, out in the meeting. That we're, the lockdown language is very punitive. Is, coming from the criminal justice world as an attorney and professor of law, these are words that, I try not to use with my students too much as well. So I think we need to look at the language that we're using. Number 2, a lot of parents shared that they didn't even understand, what that meant. What does it mean, a hold in place? What does it mean, a lockdown? And the administration that was there, they explained, well, we might have a hold in place because there might be someone who's having a medical emergency in the hallway, and we need students to be out of the hallway so we can administer first aid to that person so that they can have whatever medical situation is happening with some dignity. Or it might be a staff member that has a medical problem. But it really is a means to keep our students out of the way and keep them safe. And again, for myself, I didn't know that. When I hear my kids come home and say, we had a hold in place and it was for this amount of time, I'm thinking the worst. So I think that we need to, figure out a way that we communicate that to parents, maybe change the language, 1. Number 2, how we communicate to parents what a hold in place might mean, and then which ones are severe. Some of the parents talked about even having a tier system where if it's a tier 3 situation, if there are 3 tiers and tier 3 is the most severe, then you get a robocall or an email or a call home to say, this is what happened today. Because what parents are missing is the communication of why there was this hold in place or why there was this classroom lockdown happening. So, my purpose here tonight is to share that feedback from the meeting that I went to. I'm also asking for it as well. I think we have to look at our system and communicate better with our parents about how we're doing how we're taking care of the safety issues in our school. 2 other just quick items. One parent mentioned, specifically talking about Olympia, the principal, Dr. Weber, she sends home a newsletter every Sunday evening. We get a newsletter. I like the newsletter. I click on it, I read through it. Some parents talked about, use that as a communication tool to talk about, what the tier system might be if we develop one. What does the language mean? Use it for more than here's a sports date, put some meat on the bone. So that was one particular way. And then lastly, I would just encourage anyone, if you have the time, try to be a part of these conversations. It was sad that it wasn't hybrid because I know some folks just can't get out for various reasons, but I think moving forward, they're going to try to make a model where you can participate in person or you can participate virtually. But as was already stated earlier in the meeting, our kids will have the experience that we create with them. That will continue to be my narrative until you guys get rid of me on the board. And all that means is that whatever you push for, whatever you fight for, even if you feel like it's falling on deaf ears, there is a place for your voice. You just have to find it. And that night at that meeting, I think we solved more problems with student discipline at Olympia than, I've seen in a long time. So I encourage you all, please get involved, please use your voice, and please participate. Thank you, President McCabe.
Thanks, Dr. Trelick. Any other board member comments? Mr. Sawicki.
Thank you, Dr. Trewick. I feel like you stole my notes today, right? now, because I was going to make a parent comment as well, right? I had the opportunity, I volunteered my time as DJ at the Greece Odyssey Middle School dance, right? And it was amazing, right? Not so much for me. The kids had the best kids there, between the two events, and it was just awesome. And they all got dressed up, all proud of themselves, et cetera, right? And that was sponsored by the PTA and volunteers, parents, right? Volunteer students, staff who dedicated their time to make that event happen that really made a difference in those kids' lives. So whether it's the parent exchange, whether you call your PTA president up tomorrow and ask how you can help, call your theater, sports booster person, go be an usher at Anastasia, or come into the woods and sell concessions, whatever you want to do, right? But get out there, because you will make a difference, not only in your kids' lives, but everyone else in the district too. So I know it's hard, right? There's a million things that every parent is doing and asked to be in all the places at all the same time. Shout out to my kids who are at a chorus concert tonight and a Palentine's event, right, between Craig Hill. And it was actually great because the kids were in two different schools and I couldn't be anywhere, so I'm like, I'm going to the board meeting. So, but my point is, everyone's stretched on time. Make that time because it will make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawicki. Any other board member comments? Ms. Farah.
Well, I think we're all sharing notes today. So I did want to start off with Jordan. Thank you. You seem to be the man for the job, and we appreciate it greatly. You've heard great things. I sat there in that meeting as well, and it was amazing. I feel that we will get more parents. I feel that this will get off the ground. I'm very hopeful. Which brings me to my second thing. I see that we have two schools, Athena and Olympia, who are doing their winter dances. That's exciting to see for these students, the 8th graders. Finally, mama's going to a dance if I'm invited. That also correlates with the PTSA. You don't get anywhere with these dances unless there is parent involvement. They are the ones, even though this is student-driven, they're the ones who make these decisions. Again, this is dance for them, not for me. But this is parent, looked at, and teacher. Get out there. They need chaperones for these parties. We need fundraising for these. We're also going to be going over the food truck rodeo. There's going to be a teacher luncheon for Olympia. Olympia's PTA meeting is tomorrow at 7 p.m. in the small cafeteria. I'd love to see the Olympia parents there. Which brings me to another point. We have a fast feet soccer that is also going on at Olympia. That's going to go from March until April. That's going to be on Saturdays from 12:30 to 2:30. It's open to all 6th through 11th graders. Contact Sal Butera or Mr. Barnard is in Olympia. Lastly, there are two things regarding sports boosters. Sports boosters has been an issue that we are looking to drive back home here. Again, that is a parent involvement situation. It's parent-to-parent involvement. You'd be surprised. They are the ones that go out there to do the concession stands. Again, they are just like they're not your administration, but they are there for you guys as well, and they're there for the kids. We have a little bit of lack of participation, which we're trying to do a little bit more pep rally stuff, getting the kids to the schools, getting them into the games. But sports boosters will hopefully help that. There are 2 meetings coming up, so please mark your calendars. The first one is going to be an all Greece sports boosters, which is going to be March 2nd at 6:30 at Arcadia, which is going to follow Olympia's sports booster program the following week on March 9th at 6 p.m. at Olympia. Would love to see you guys all there. These kids definitely need it, and I think that we're coming back from this. So Thank you again for everything.
Thanks. Any other board member comments? Mr. Bonagorio?
I want to acknowledge that I heard from an inside source that disc jockey Sawicki had the dance floor rocking at the Odyssey Dance, so good job there. I want to acknowledge our students who reported to us this evening. Really, just encouraging stuff to see from our Phoenix students. And in the video that was presented, oh my gosh, there's some amazing things going on in our district, and that's just really awesome to see. So kudos to the students and the teachers who are involved in all of that. I also, we've heard it over and over again how important it is for parent involvement. Mr. Stenzel, thank you. Thanks for the encouraging comments at the beginning of the meeting. It's, keep encouraging parents to be involved, and we all need to be doing the same thing, so thanks. Ms. Fowler, I want to just acknowledge your comments. Reading is something that I'm concerned about. We're all concerned about it. That is something we need to have a brighter spotlight on, not just here, but all across the county, the country. There are good things happening. You acknowledge that. I see it, and I appreciate from our staff I've met with. It's nice to see us taking some really proactive actions. I'd love to see more of that. Thank you for bringing that up. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Bonagorio. Mr. Maloney?
I feel like I need to make a plug for Arcadia, since we've been talking about all the other high schools tonight. They have an amazing play coming up, I think it starts March 5th, Addams Family, and I heard it's hilarious, so it'd be worth the purchase and have a good laugh. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. Ms. Flores?
I'd also like to echo comments. I know that, at least for myself, and I think I speak for a lot of the other board members, having the students come and speak to us is one of our favorite things to hear, and have them share with us what's going on in their lives from their perspective. One of the things that I keep hearing from my daughter's friends, other people that go to school with her, which I'm assuming is most likely occurring at these other schools, is they all have opinions too. So for all the parents that are watching, if your kids have opinions about stuff, we encourage you and we ask you to have your kids come and speak to the board here as well. They share their things in school and they feel like they're not heard. So I think it's important to be able to share. Kids are welcome at any given time to share their thoughts on different things, like the cell phone policy, which I hear about every week, and other things that are going on about how they feel about what the different rules are, code of conduct, et cetera. So we always encourage that. We really like to hear it. I'd also like to put a plug in for our GTA representative and talking about the donations to the Greece food shelf. In addition, our food pantry at Arcadia is seeing a rise in participation. There are a million ways to get involved in our district. And a lot of times people say, I don't have the time, I can't do this, I can't do that. Doing something with the food pantry is something really small that somebody can do, and it may not cost a lot. A simple box of macaroni and cheese sometimes can be a really good thing and an easy way, because the more that pitch in, the less is needed by the fewer. So please, I'll ask you to consider that in the time that you have. So after the holidays, there's a lot of need out there. I think there's a lot of focus that's put on at the holidays for people and different things that are given. The need continues all year long. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Vice President Malloy?
Well, so those of you who know me, I have to be around students. So I had two wonderful experiences in the last month. I was at Buckman Heights for a celebration of frogs. And third graders, which made it even more exciting, was they were all from different countries, all 12 of them, and most of them didn't speak English very well. First of all, I was underdressed because they came for a celebration. And it was just delightful to see them do a little presentation and talk one-on-one with me, and it warmed my heart that they felt so welcome at their school. So good work, Buckman Heights. On the opposite side, I've been working with some students at Arcadia on their public policy papers that they have to present and talk about what they'd like to see and change. The number one, just so you know, is changing the starting time of school because teenagers don't want to go to school at 7 o'clock in the morning. So that is fun for me. And I hooked them up with Webster because Webster has done a switch. So it was very interesting for me to see. It's nice to be able to see students, to see them engaged. They showed me how they use their Chromebooks and passes, and I think that we have to always keep in mind that we're moving ahead with technology and that we have to support it, as painful it is for old people like me. Finally, please go see Anastasia. It's wonderful. Three more productions, and it's just great to see the kids on stage having a good time. So thank you.
Thanks, Vice President Moore. I have a couple things. First, as over 20 years on the School Safety Committee, Dr. Trewick, the language you refer to is state mandated. It's required. The language we use is required, so it's in our safety plans. It's required by SED, and it's also in the calendar we mail out to all our parents. So all of those definitions are in there. I mean, we could probably do a better job of highlighting it in other places, but just for you, the language is state mandated, so we really don't have a choice or the ability to change that language. Moving on, as Mrs. Flagler said, and Vice President Laura, Anastasia, I'm not a big musical person, but I was lucky enough to attend the other day, and even Superintendent Groutman was picking on me for being there. And but I thoroughly enjoyed it. The performers were amazing. It was a full house, so get your tickets this weekend to go see an amazing show our students just do. It's amazing that these are high school kids. I wish I could sing and dance a tenth as well as these kids do. It's absolutely amazing. So go see that. On another note, I'd like to point out the special event for me is we're having a CPR at our Odyssey Academy on Saturday, starting, I believe, at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'd like to thank our community partners, Highland Hospital, Monroe Ambulance, the Ridgewater Fire District, the Barnard Fire District, North Greece Fire District, and Lakeshore Fire District for making this happen. It's a great opportunity to learn CPR. I mean, we've all heard a lot about CPR in the last month with the DeMar Hamlin issue on Monday Night Football. And then today the story, I don't know if you haven't read it, read Kim Pagula's story on Players Tribune, written by her daughter, the 10th rated tennis player, women's tennis player in the world. It was an amazing story about how rapid CPR, and I've seen it myself a lot over my time in the fire service. Rapid CPR in AED makes a huge difference, and it made a difference in Kim Pagula's situation, and obviously in the DeMar Hamlin situation. So I encourage everybody to go learn at least the basic skills of CPR. You can't go wrong having it. So I encourage everybody to get signed up. There's still a few openings and a few of the sessions left, so please do that. And I'd also like to point out that we're having a transportation hiring event. I believe it's March 2nd. Yes. Okay, and please come to that. There's a sign out front. There'll be things out there about that, so I encourage everybody to attend. We're always looking for people who work in transportation. With that, Superintendent Groutman.
Yep, I just have a couple of things. One, I am really thrilled with the plugs and the information, just the people encouraging the parent exchanges. Like was mentioned, we have district-wide ones, but you'll see that more schools are doing them. One thing that I want people to realize about those is we've been really clear, and I think this is just an important sort of distinction around, these are parents talking to parents. And it is not intended for administrators or teachers or people to come and take over that. And I think that's important because parents have a voice and need to engage in those conversations. What I do want to say, though, and what's really important, is that there is information being gathered. And one of the things that's really important to us is that information then get to us. And then we can actually, so that we can hear the themes that have emerged, the suggestions that have been brought up. Dr. Trewick brought up some good suggestions, but there's more that I know are in those notes. And I want to make sure that people know that we get that, and that we are also committed to being more explicit about responding to that. Sometimes we go and we make some changes and people don't know that we did that. Where how do we be clearer around, we heard this, that happened, we heard you, and here's what we're doing about it. So we're gonna work on that, just so that that's clearer. And that might be through s'mores or principal newsletters, but it also could be through some district communication. So thank you for that feedback. I would also challenge us as a community to consider something that no one has mentioned. And Ms. Flores, you alluded to this, but why and have we not considered student exchanges? I think the most valuable asset we have in this district, and I appreciate parents, love y'all, but we are here for students, and they oftentimes have the best advice, the best suggestions, and they can clarify what's really important to them that they're living every day. So I guess I would just say out loud, as a superintendent, I would encourage, how do we consider and find ways to do some district-wide and school-based student exchanges to really hear from them, and then maybe see where things line up, and where we could put our biggest and best efforts. So that's just one thought. I also would encourage us to continue. We have parent coordinators that are doing incredible work, that are at those exchanges, that are then boots on the ground at the school, trying to meet and connect with parents. And I just want to give them a huge shout out, because not only do they help in the exchanges, but they're doing day-to-day work that's making a huge difference for us in terms of really hearing from parents and helping parents and families. And I didn't mention this. This is my funny, but I was at a meeting last week where I was approached by the superintendent of Webster, wondering why my students were reaching out to him. And I didn't know why, but now I actually understand why that ask was happening. And lastly, I want to just go back to the students that were here earlier from the transition program and from Phoenix. I will say transition is a big deal in education, and most people aren't aware of the work that goes into transition programming. And there's a lot of places across the state and the nation that don't do it very well. So as kids turn 18, very little is done to support. And I will say very proudly as a superintendent that the folks that were here, and you saw a lot of the teachers and support staff, do an absolutely incredible job of caring and loving and working and teaching our kids. So that just makes me really proud. I want to thank Lori, who got up and introduced it, but Stacy, your whole department, for the work that we do in terms of not forgetting and really understanding the definition of inclusion, because that's lived right there. And I will end by my favorite quote was from the Phoenix student who said, "It's small, but it's us." And I think if there was anything that was going to bring tear in my eye, like, man, that just crushed me. So thanks for all the kids for being here and for sharing that. And thanks to all of you here on the board and in our community for all of your feedback and the work that you're doing to support us.
Mr. Maloney. Is there a second? Dr. Trawick, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. See you in a couple weeks.